Today's term is soul. In the Aristotelian corpus, soul is a translation of the Greek psuche, and also the Latin anima, which you may have noticed already if you are familiar with his book on the subject, De Anima. While the term soul is used today to denote a ghost or some kind of immaterial phantasm, this is not the case in Aristotelian thought. Rather, the soul is, quite simply, the principle of life. Anything which has life is therefore endowed with a soul, of which there are multiple kinds. In Aristotelian metaphysics, the soul is the form of a living body. As you may recall, we previously explored the argument that forms do not exist on their own. They are not, in and of themselves, a substance. Rather, they can only exist immanently in matter. For example, a chair is one of many possible forms that wood can take. It only becomes a chair when the carpenter, acting as the efficient cause, brings it into existence and thus makes it exist in actuality. It is not his idea of the chair which is the form, but the way in which the material is organised when the chair begins to exist. Here it must be conceded that this distinction was not made plain enough in my previous explanation, on account of the following sentence. The chair at this point is what Aristotle termed a form. This last-minute rewording may have unintentionally implied that forms are simply equivalent to ideas in the mind. In fact, by "at this point," I meant the chair as it exists presently, that is, in its fully realised state, as opposed to existing only in the imagination. This sentence was meant to contrast with my earlier musings on the idea of the chair, in order to make clear that the form is not merely the idea. We apologise for the verbal soup. Now, back to the subject at hand. Now, a chair and a soul are both examples of forms, and yet our intuition suggests that they differ in kind, and rightly so. A soul is the form of a natural substance. It is inherently self-organising, meaning it arises on account of an internal principle of motion and rest. A chair, however, is an artifact. It has no such principle, meaning it cannot come to be on its own. Rather, it comes to be by an efficient cause, such as the carpenter. Natural substances, that is, matter-form composites which arise naturally, cannot be separated without each component being destroyed, whereas the opposite is possible for artifacts. It is quite another thing to ask whether a given ensouled body can perceive, or has some kind of consciousness, or indeed any faculties which one may associate with contemporary definitions of the soul. We will address the various processes and facets of life in due course.